When you think about government, what comes to mind? Probably big, fancy buildings, right? Marble columns, all that stuff. Well, let's forget about that for a second. Think of government more like a set of tools. And today, we're going to open up the most important toolbox of them all, the legislature. So, come on, let's pop the lid and see what's inside. Okay, so this is the huge problem every single society ever has had to deal with. It's a massive juggling act, right? I mean, how do you create fair rules for everyone, figure out how to pay for everything the country needs, and keep power in check so no one person or group becomes a tyrant, all at the same time? Sounds impossible, doesn't it? Well, turns out there's an invention for that.
And here it is, the legislature. That's the answer to that massive question we just asked. It's the branch of government built specifically to be the law-making engine for a state. But here's the thing, a tool this important wasn't just invented overnight. Oh no, it was forged over centuries of trial and error.
So, where did this whole idea even come from? Let's take a look at the origin story of this essential tool, tracing its journey from ancient customs all the way to the congresses and parliaments we have today. Way back in ancient times, society wasn't run by written laws. It was all about traditions and customs. Then you get the rise of rulers, kings and queens, and they become the ones making the rules. But even a king can't do it all alone, right? So they started appointing advisors, and boom, you have the very first early versions of parliaments. But the real game changer, the big one, happened in the 18th and 19th centuries. That's when this totally radical idea of popular representation, the idea that the people themselves should choose their lawmakers, really took off. And with modern legislatures came this really smart idea, a fixed term in office. It's this incredibly delicate balancing act. Think about it. If the term is too short, lawmakers never really get the hang of the job. But if it's too long, they can totally lose touch with the very people who sent them there. So this fixed tenure, it's like a built-in timer for accountability, trying to make sure they stay both effective and connected to you.
All right, so let's get back to our toolbox. What's the number one most powerful tool in there? Well, it's the ability to write the country's rulebook. It's the power to make the laws.
Now, this isn't as simple as just writing something down and calling it a law. No way. Lawmaking is super complex, and it needs real expertise. So a new law usually starts as a proposal, right? A bill. Then it gets handed off to a smaller committee of experts in that specific area who really dig in and fine-tune it. It's only after that really tough, detailed discussion that it comes to the floor for everyone in the legislature to debate and finally vote on. The whole thing is designed to be slow and careful on purpose.
But wait, there's more in the toolbox. A legislature doesn't just write the rules. It also acts as a watchdog, keeping a close eye on everyone else. And it's got a gavel to make sure the other branches of government stay in line. So, let's see exactly how it uses that power.
Okay, one of its biggest, most serious powers is the ability to change the Constitution itself. We're talking the ultimate rulebook of the country. And this is a perfect example of how different systems can be. In Britain, Parliament can amend it with just a simple majority vote. Pretty straightforward. But in the US, the founders made it incredibly difficult on purpose. It takes a huge amount of agreement to change anything.
Legislatures are also there to keep the executive branch, the president or prime minister, in check. And they do it in different ways. In a parliamentary system, the legislature can haul cabinet members in for questioning and force debates on their actions. But in a presidential system, like in the US, the Senate gets the final say on the president's big appointments and any international treaties. So, two very different tools, but they're both aiming for the exact same thing: oversight. And their reach doesn't stop there. It extends to the judicial branch, too. I mean, they have the power to impeach high officials, like a president, which is basically putting them on trial. In some places, like the UK for a long time, the upper house of the legislature actually was the highest court in the land. And of course, they can always pass new laws that completely change how the court system is organized. Okay, now we get to what might just be the most powerful tool in the entire toolbox. It's all about control over the money. You've probably heard it called the power of the purse. And that phrase just nails it. The crucial thing to understand is this. The executive branch, the president, the government, cannot raise a single dollar in taxes or spend a single dollar of public money without the legislature's permission. Not 1 cent. They are the ultimate guardians of the nation's wallet. So how does this actually work in practice? Well, the executive branch, they put together the annual budget. But, and this is a big but, it's just a proposal.
It's the legislature that gets to pick it apart, debate every line, and even demand cuts. They have the final say. It's simple. No approval, no money. End of story.
And you might be wondering, how do they make these huge decisions? They aren't just guessing. Legislatures have their own tools for this. They have independent auditors and special committees, like public accounts committees, whose whole job is to go through the government spending from the last year with a fine-tooth comb. This gives lawmakers the hard data they need to make smart calls on the next budget. Okay, so we've covered laws and money, but there's another set of tools in this box, and they're just as vital. The legislature also acts as a kind of national megaphone, a platform where the voices, the concerns, and even the frustrations of the people can be heard loud and clear.
And lawmakers have a whole arsenal of tools to make this happen. They can stand up on the floor and publicly tear into government policies. They can ask tough, direct questions to the people in charge. They can even introduce motions and resolutions just to force a public discussion on a topic the government might rather ignore. It's all about airing out the people's grievances.
So why is this so incredibly important? Well, because this public airing of grievances is one of the most powerful checks we have against autocratic behavior. Think about it. When a government knows it's going to be publicly grilled and criticized for every move it makes, it has to explain itself. That kind of transparency makes it way, way harder for anyone to abuse power when no one's looking. And finally, here's one last function that's super interesting, but maybe a little less obvious. The legislature is literally a training ground for the next generation of political leaders. New members get to jump into debates, learn the ropes, and soak up knowledge from the veteran politicians around them. It's basically a real-world academy for national leadership.
So, there you have it. We've looked through the whole toolbox. We've got the rulebook for making laws, the watchdog and the gavel for oversight, the power of the purse to control the money, and the megaphone to make sure the people's voices are heard. The legislature has all the tools it could possibly need to govern, to oversee, and to represent. So I guess the big question for all of us today is this: are those tools actually being used effectively? And that's